Hello Sketchbook, fancy some sketchy time? Me too! This is Pencil, who is going to be helping us today. If you have been having this same chat with your sketchbook recently, but are perhaps finding yourself and blank page having a bit of a staring competition, you'll find 5 sketchy ideas you can try in this video. Along with a pencil, you might want to grab a ruler and eraser, but those are optional, and hey, you do you! First up is a very relaxed exercise which I like to call Scribbly Silhouettes, mainly because I like the word scribbly. It rhymes with wibbly. All you need to do is think of a simple object or shape and then scribble it onto the page. My first attempt here is an apple. After that, I do go on a bit of a fruit tangent. I tried a banana and it went very weird. As you can see, it's far too long and pointy. It came out more like a moon shape. Even trying to add the peel did not save it. So I tried a smaller version and that came out better, though that could also be interpreted as an ear of corn too. And I think this is one of the things that I find really interesting in this exercise. It is both incredibly simple but tricky at the same time. When you reduce an object down to its most basic shapes, it doesn't always retain its identity. Sometimes it morphs, and this can be great in terms of sparking inspiration, as we'll see later. I recommend doing this exercise without looking at references. Just picture something in your mind and then see what comes out onto the page. It can be objects, animals, people, whatever your mind reaches for that flows into your fingers. If a scribble goes a bit squiffy and doesn't translate well as a silhouette, either try it again or just move on to something else. You can experiment with adding more shading on some or changing the angles of the scribble, whatever pops into your mind. I do have one thing to ask of you though. Please try not to judge the scribbles that you make. This isn't about getting the shapes right or creating a beautiful balanced page of elements. It's about loosening up your hands and letting go of a plan. You can do it, so get to it. Having now created a page full of scribbles, I can use this to spark ideas for my next sketchy experiment. Remember what I said about how shadow shapes can morph into other things? Well, I'm turning my page around to view my scribbles from different angles because this helps me to spot shapes that I might otherwise miss. I'm looking for a shape which, from a different angle, reminds me of something else. I see a possibility in the strawberry, as upside down it reminds me of an octopus with short legs. So here's the plan. I'm going to sketch 3 basic strawberry shapes across my page, all at different angles. The first shape is simply going to be a sketch of a strawberry. If you're trying this too, you can be as detailed or as freestyle as you like. You can take your time or speed on through. It's just a moment to enjoy sketching. Again, I didn't use a reference here, but if you want to, you go for it. Once I'm happy with my strawberry, I'm going to skip on down to the third shape on my page. This is going to be my strawberry octopus. I'm using the berry part of the shape to become the octopus body, and the leafy stem will become the tentacles. Sure, it's not an anatomically correct octopus by any means, but it is fun to draw, and it looks octopusy enough for me. Finally, I used the middle shape to become a strawberry octopus hybrid. This one needs to have qualities from both ends of the spectrum, so I extend the leaves out further but keep the berry still looking strawberry-like. I actually felt I wanted to add another stage into this metamorphosis, so I drew another one, which kind of threw off the balance of the page as a whole, but you know what, who cares? I think so often we can fall into the trap of believing that our sketchbooks need to look cohesive and beautiful. They don't. They are places for experimentation and learning, for relaxation and expansion. All of those things can be messy or wonky or a bit weird. And that's definitely what this page turned out to be. Give it a go yourself. The next time you see something and its shape reminds you of another thing, jot it down and draw it in your sketchbook. And let me know which transformations you try. Comment below or tag me on Instagram because I would love to hear your ideas. This next idea starts with making some wiggly lines across the page. They can be any shape, but they must come onto the page and off again. No unfinished lines here. Then, placing the pencil onto one of these lines, I'm pulling in downward strokes all the way along. I'm keeping my hand steady so I can get a natural pencil stroke and repeating this, meaning all of my lines end up roughly the same length. The lines all need to travel straight downwards, so when I meet a curve in the line, which blocks me from doing this, I just pick it up again when the line evens out. As you can see, this simple way of sketching creates a feeling of dimension against the line, as if it is a cliff edge. I continue on adding lines to the other wigglies and eventually creating what feels like a series of simple clifftop pathways or floating land plates. At this point you can leave this as is if you want. I think it's a pretty clean and cool effect. However, if you have a hankering, as I did, to fill some space, you can start experimenting. By the way, do not ask me why I didn't add the lines to that bit. I have no excuse, I simply forgot. Brain fog is real and maybe so too is eye fog. I kept looking at that area thinking, that's too much white, it feels unbalanced with the rest of the page, I need to fill it. And no wonder when I missed off a whole chunk of lines. Anywho, I started experimenting up in the smaller corner with basic shading, but I didn't like it. It just looked murky. So I abandoned that and moved on to the other corner where I tried out drawing some wobbly forms. I liked this better, so that's what I carried through to the rest of the page. They make me think that something is living down in the in-between spaces. I'm not sure what, but it's something. Finally, I add a couple of squiggles to represent two people on different planes looking at each other across the gaps. It's a funny kind of page, but it was weirdly satisfying to draw, which is why I'm sharing it with you. I've drawn a rough box outline on my page page here, but that's optional. The first stage of this sketch is to simply draw some straight lines across the page. Pick a wonky angle that feels right and then lightly draw some lines at random intervals. For now, keep them all at the same angle. You can use both sides of the ruler so you can easily get 2 lines from one ruler placement, so that's handy. I'm just doing this by eye though, so don't worry about making sure that every line is at 45 degrees or whatever. Similar is good enough. Once I've got a good few lines from that angle, I then do a bunch of lines at a different angle going the other way, so the lines crisscross each other. Don't think too hard if you try this, just plop them onto the page however you like. Okay, now I'm placing my pencil at a point on a line, it can be anywhere, and then drawing a straight line downwards from it until it meets another parallel line. Then I draw another vertical line next to it, and this creates a wonky box. I do the same thing with another pair of vertical lines on another pair of angled lines. So now I have 2 wonky boxes. So far so okay, but why though? Stay with me. I outline the wonky boxes so that they are bolder and add a bit of shading in the edges just because I want to. And then I carry on adding more boxes scattered across the page between the lines. Sometimes I might knock into a box that is already there, and I have a choice. I can either pretend the box I'm drawing now is behind the other one and not break into the other box. Or I can allow the boxes to be transparent and let the lines break across each other. Now you can make all the boxes the same stylistically, or you can start varying them. Here I'm adding boxes which are fully shaded, and you can add more extra guidelines on at any point because the more boxes you make, the more ideas might spark. For me, as I'm drawing, I go through different thoughts. When I started adding in the shaded boxes, it made me think that all of these boxes were windows on a block of flats, and some had their lights on inside, while others were dark. Because of that thought, I couldn't help popping a little blob with eyes into one of the windows, and then I drew a random plant dangling out of another. After that, I was reminded of washing hanging on a line, so for a couple of boxes, I added 2 pegs on the tops of them. One of the largest boxes made me think of a big wall poster or a shop window, so I drew in some bolder lines on the angles around it to create a block building. On a whim, I drew lots of straight lines to shade in a big section, which I think makes it look like we're looking into the building. Now I was on a buildings on a street vibe, so I added some grassy edges to one line, because why not? I know this all sounds a bit random, but that is very much the point. This sketchy exercise is all about going with whatever ideas spark as you go along. I wrote down windows, washing lines, picture frames on the bottom of the page, and regardless of whether one idea worked with another, I tried them out. It doesn't matter if the scale is inconsistent, it doesn't matter if it becomes a bit messy. Your sketchbook pages don't have to make sense to anyone, not even to you. Give it a go, play with some angles and see where they take you. Alright, our last sketchy doodle is diving into shading. I'm drawing a crackly random shape on my page. It came out looking a bit like a country. Then I'm drawing another shape very close to it. I'm adding some cracks coming away from some of the edges of the shapes, but I'll do more later too. Then I'm lightly drawing some smaller versions of my shapes inside of each other, but all starting from one point. These will essentially be my shading zones. The most outer zone is shaded very lightly. The next zone in is shaded a little darker, and so on, until I reach the smallest zone, which is shaded the darkest. As you can see, I shade each section very roughly at first, just getting a feel for the values and how they relate to each other. Once the darkest one is added, I can go back and build up the other zones more. Any cracks will also use the darker values, so I can colour those in too, and I also make the outline of the shape bolder to match the cracks. Adding a little shading now and then on the inside of those lines is also satisfying. I'm not finished on my first shape, but I'm going to catch my second shape up before I go any further. Adding tiny cracks is so very pleasing, I cannot tell you. Just draw jaggedy lines, sometimes using pressure and then lightening it off as you move along. Pure joy. Lastly, I draw on lines inside my shadings which echo the zones but are not exactly the same. I start the line from an edge and let it tail off against another edge. Does that make sense? Then I add shading onto the inner side of each line. I don't know, there's something about this one which I really enjoyed. It's not the perfect version of a crack in a wall or a hole in the ground, but it's a step towards it, and it really does push you to think about shading and how it creates so much depth. Anywho, listen up, you made it to the end of the video and I am very thankful you came along with me for the ride. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do consider hitting the like button as it really does help me out. And if you fancy stopping by again for more creative wanderings, the subscribe button is looking at you in that friendly way that maybe you cannot resist. Maybe you can, and that's okay too. Let me know what you think of these sketchy ideas. Would you try any? The comments await your input. Stay curious, keep making happy, and I will see you next time.